He is not your baby, Austin, and I am not going to let this broke retail clerk trick you into raising someone else's child just to get her hands on our family estate." Those were the exact words my mother-in-law spit out with chilling composure as she slammed a heavy white envelope bearing a private lab seal onto the granite kitchen island. Just 3 weeks after I gave birth to my first child, the paternity report she had ordered behind my back showed a flat 0% biological probability. In less than 10 minutes, my newborn's packed diaper bags and clothes were dumped unceremoniously onto the front porch. My husband, a man I had been married to for 3 years, who pulled in over $120,000 a year as a senior software engineer, refused to even meet my eyes while his mother stood in the foyer calling a locksmith to rekey the front door. They threw me out onto the driveway in the middle of the night, with my C-section stitches throbbing at every step, branded as an unfaithful gold digger in front of the entire neighborhood. What my mother-in-law calculated so flawlessly in her scheme to destroy me was that a girl working a retail job would just break down, accept the embarrassment, and disappear into the night. What she didn't realize was that as I sat in my running car trying to keep my crying baby warm, I pulled up the digital portal on my phone and noticed a tiny discrepancy in the lab's verification chain that changed everything. My name is Samantha Hollingsworth. I am 24 years old and I work as a store manager at a mobile carrier. That night, holding my sleeping son in the front seat of my car, I realized the fight for my dignity had only just begun. I met Austin 4 years ago when he walked into the mobile carrier store I manage, looking to transfer his corporate accounts and set up a new network plan. He was a bright, soft-spoken software engineer making incredible money at a major tech firm in downtown Atlanta. Despite coming from 2 completely different worlds, him raised in a sprawling 6-bedroom estate in Alpharetta, and me growing up in a modest apartment paying my own way through trade courses, Austin seemed genuinely grounded. He made me feel like we were going to build an independent life together, free from his family's overbearing shadow. But underneath his calm demeanor was a deep, toxic dependency on his mother, Patricia Brooks. Patricia made no effort to hide her disgust for me from the very beginning. To her, a 24-year-old woman who spent 40 to 50 hours a week on her feet managing customer service reps, troubleshooting network hardware, and dealing with angry walk-ins, wasn't worthy of carrying her family name. Over the 3 years of our marriage, I endured her passive-aggressive insults at every single Sunday dinner. She sneered at my wardrobe, criticized my work schedule, and constantly implied that I was only with Austin for his 6-figure paycheck. Austin always begged me to keep the peace, promising me that once we settled down, his mother would eventually learn to accept me. When I got pregnant, the emotional abuse spiraled out of control. Instead of celebrating the news, Patricia started planting subtle seeds of doubt in Austin's head. She used my late store shifts, inventory audit nights, and emergency weekend callouts as an excuse to insinuate that a woman who spent so much time at a retail location couldn't be trusted. Austin, buried under his laptop screen and completely brainwashed by his mother's daily phone calls, became paranoid and distant. While I paid my fair share of the mortgage, handled all our household bills, and worked overtime right up until my 3rd trimester, he allowed Patricia to invade every single detail of our lives. The real nightmare began the day our son was born. Patricia didn't even want to hold the baby in the hospital, giving him a cold, calculating look before making a cruel comment about how his features didn't match the Brooks family bloodline. During the 3 agonizing weeks following my emergency C-section, while I was struggling with exhaustion, surgical pain, and postpartum recovery, Patricia practically moved into our house. She dictated my feeding schedule, criticized how I held my son, and spent hours whispering in Austin's ear while I was trying to rest. I was physically broken and mentally drained, but I kept my mouth shut for the sake of my newborn. What I never saw coming was that while I was asleep in the nursery, Patricia and Austin were orchestrating a cold-blooded ambush. They took advantage of a 20-minute errand when I ran down to the local pharmacy for medical supplies to swab my baby's cheek and send off an expedited sample to a private testing facility, determined to manufacture an excuse to throw me out on the street and erase me from their lives forever. Sitting alone in my sedan on the side of the road, watching the rain streak down my windshield while my newborn slept in his car seat, the shock slowly faded into an ice-cold determination. My hands were shaking, but my brain was working clearer than it ever had before. I pulled out my phone and dialed Eleanor Trowbridge. Eleanor wasn't just my godmother. She was a brilliant, highly respected lab director who had spent over 25 years running a top-tier forensic molecular genetics laboratory in downtown Atlanta. When she picked up and heard the tremor in my voice, she didn't ask a million questions. She just gave me her address and told me to get over to her house immediately. When I arrived, Eleanor wrapped me in a blanket, made sure the baby was fed and comfortable, and spread the paternity report out on her dining room table under a bright desk lamp. She put on her reading glasses, pulled out a magnifying glass, and began reading through the fine print with the methodical precision of an expert witness. Within 10 minutes, her calm expression turned into a sharp, disbelieving scowl. The first major red flag she spotted was a total breach of standard forensic chain of custody protocols. For a DNA paternity test to hold any legal or biological validity, the collection swabs must be sealed in front of a certified medical professional, documented with a unique tamper-evident barcode, and logged into a secure registry at the exact moment of sampling. The document my mother-in-law had dumped on the kitchen island had no verified chain of custody log. The child sample ID was just a generic handwritten sticker slapped onto a third-party commercial form. Eleanor didn't stop there. She logged into her professional portal to cross-reference the state medical license number of the doctor who had supposedly authorized the home collection kit at the Alpharetta estate. The result was appalling. The license belonged to a semi-retired cosmetic surgeon who happened to be Patricia's first cousin. The man hadn't practiced general medicine in years, yet his name was signed on the authorization form. At 3 a.m, Eleanor opened her official field collection kit. Right there on her kitchen counter, under the lens of her camera with real-time date and timestamps running, she took fresh certified buccal swabs from both my baby and me. She sealed them in tamper-proof bags, tagged them with official state barcodes, and locked them into her temperature-controlled transport case. Eleanor was convinced that Patricia hadn't just paid off a corrupt relative to sign a fraudulent document. She had deliberately contaminated the submitted sample with synthetic agents or used a non-human control sample to guarantee an immediate 0% match. Before the sun came up over the Atlanta skyline, we had built an ironclad file documenting forgery, chain of custody fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Eleanor shut her laptop, looked me dead in the eye, and laid her hand over mine. "We are not filing a police report just yet, Samantha," she said softly. "We are going to let them think they won completely, right up until the day they try to celebrate it." Over the next few days, the psychological campaign launched by the Brooks family turned utterly ruthless. Austin, completely weaponized by his mother, set out to ruin my reputation before I could even catch my breath. He sent a group text to our entire circle of college friends and former co-workers, claiming I had been living a double life, stepping out on him throughout our marriage and abandoning our home after being confronted with undeniable scientific evidence. Patricia took the slander to an even nastier level. She used her local clout in Alpharetta to spread rumors among the local business community, even calling my regional manager at the mobile carrier company to suggest that my personal lack of ethics made me unfit to oversee store operations and high-value inventory. They hired a high-powered family law attorney to send me a formal cease and desist letter along with a surrender agreement, demanding I relinquish parental rights and waive any claim to spousal support, threatening to sue me for civil fraud if I tried to step foot near their property. Their arrogance, however, reached its absolute peak when Patricia decided to throw a massive welcome party at a high-end country club in Buckhead. The official reason was to celebrate her charity foundation's anniversary, but behind closed doors, it was her grand victory lap, a chance to showcase to Atlanta high society how her family had successfully ousted what she called an opportunistic gold digger. Austin sent me one last text message, filled with calculated, condescending pity. He told me that if I had any self-respect left, I would sign the custody waiver, pack my things, and move back to my parents' town without making a scene. Reading those words on my phone while sitting in Eleanor's office surrounded by certified lab seals and sworn affidavits, I didn't shed a single tear. They were convinced I was a broken, terrified girl hiding in a motel room. They had no idea that Eleanor and I had already secured invitations to that exact country club event through her executive network. The final piece of our puzzle fell into place at 2 o'clock the afternoon before the party, when Eleanor introduced me to her longtime professional associate, Detective Marcus Sterling. Marcus was a former senior investigator with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, who now ran a premier private forensic firm specializing in white-collar fraud and domestic evidentiary tampering. The moment he reviewed Eleanor's certified lab logs, the chain of custody violations, and the medical license records, his sharp eyes lit up with absolute disgust. Marcus didn't waste a single minute. He used his official access to pull state registry filings and discovered that Patricia's cousin, the semi-retired surgeon who signed the collection form, had already been flagged twice by the state medical board for signing fraudulent affidavits in exchange for under-the-table kickbacks. Marcus and Eleanor then ran a full comparative analysis between our fresh certified cheek swabs and the corrupted sample Patricia had submitted to the commercial lab. The forensic results were shocking. The sample Patricia sent in didn't belong to a human child at all. It was a synthetic saline solution deliberately spiked with mild chemical denaturants designed to destroy genetic markers and force an automatic non-match error in the automated sequencing equipment. On top of that, Marcus tracked the digital receipt for the expedited test kit directly to a corporate credit card registered under Austin's name. With a 30-page certified forensic report stamped by the State Board of Genetics, sworn affidavits from Eleanor and Marcus, and an emergency summons for criminal fraud, evidence tampering, and intentional infliction of emotional distress signed by a duty judge, our case was completely unstoppable. Marcus slid the heavy black folder across the desk toward me, adjusted his jacket, and looked me straight in the eye. Tomorrow at that country club, they think they're celebrating a victory. By 4 o'clock, they're going to be talking to a grand jury. What would you do if the man you pledged your life to threw you out onto the driveway with your newborn baby in the middle of the night based on a sickening lie fabricated by his wealthy mother? At 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, the private ballroom at the exclusive Buckhead Country Club was packed. Nearly 50 guests, including prominent local business owners, tech executives, and Atlanta socialites, were mingling over champagne glasses, surrounding a lavishly decorated table covered in floral arrangements and wrapped gifts. Standing at the head of the room was Patricia Brooks, looking radiant in a custom designer suit, alongside Austin, who stood with a look of manufactured sorrow, accepting sympathetic nods from his colleagues for putting a painful chapter behind him. The cheerful chatter died instantly when the heavy double doors at the entrance swung wide open. Carrying my sleeping son securely in my arms, I walked straight down the center aisle, flanked by Eleanor. Directly behind us, wearing an undeniable presence of authority, Detective Marcus Sterling and 2 uniformed Fulton County police officers stepped into the room and positioned themselves near the stage. The entire ballroom fell into a suffocating silence. Patricia stood up immediately, her face contorting with rage as she began shouting for security to throw us out for trespassing. Without uttering a word, Eleanor stepped forward, pulled out a remote control, and connected her tablet directly to the ballroom's high-definition projection screen. Instead of the corporate slideshow Patricia had planned, the giant display lit up with the certified forensic seal of the State Genetics Laboratory, showcasing the official DNA profile that confirmed a flawless 99.99% biological paternity match between Austin Brooks and my son. Before anyone could process the shock, Detective Marcus Sterling took the microphone and read aloud from the official police record. He detailed the criminal investigation into Patricia Brooks and her physician cousin for evidence tampering, filing fraudulent medical affidavits, and executing a conspiracy using corporate credit cards. Austin stood frozen, his face turning pale as he looked from the screen to his mother, whose aristocratic mask shattered into total panic right in front of her high society peers. The officers stepped forward and handed Patricia the formal criminal court summons along with an immediate restraining order, while I walked up to Austin, handed him the divorce papers, and looked him dead in the eye for the last time. I turned around and walked out of that hall with my head held high. 6 months after that afternoon in the Buckhead Country Club ballroom, my life has returned to a state of calm, independence, and deep dignity that no one can ever shake again. The legal proceedings against Patricia Brooks and her cousin moved forward with terrifying swiftness due to the overwhelming forensic evidence provided by the state board. Faced with felony charges of evidence tampering and conspiracy to commit fraud, Patricia was forced to accept a plea bargain that included a substantial criminal fine, mandatory community service, and a permanent restraining order keeping her away from my son and me. My divorce from Austin was finalized entirely on my terms. Destroyed by the public exposure and unable to face his colleagues after his corporate card was linked to the fraud scheme, he quietly resigned from his senior engineering role. The court awarded me sole legal and physical custody of our son, full child support payments, and a complete financial settlement covering all legal fees. Today, Austin lives in self-imposed isolation, completely broke emotionally and trapped under the thumb of the very mother who ruined his life. With the financial settlement secured and the nightmare behind me, I stepped down from my retail management job and launched my own business, a specialized consulting firm helping small retailers. Brands optimize their digital network operations and point-of-sale systems. My son is growing up happy, healthy, and surrounded by genuine love, completely shielded from the toxic entitlement and cold ambition of the Brooks family. Eleanor and Detective Marcus Sterling remain an irreplaceable part of my life, living proof that true loyalty and unyielding integrity will always overcome the most calculated lies. This experience taught me a lesson I will carry forever. A high net worth and an old family name can buy fancy clothes and country club memberships, but they can never buy class, character, or honor. No mother-in-law can destroy a marriage unless the husband allows it. And no amount of wealth can stand when you confront deception with the absolute truth. If anyone ever tries to make you feel inferior or question your worth, stand your ground, keep your head up, and let the facts speak for themselves.